Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Wesley's Beats episode. I've got another exclusive interview. This one is coming from a Washington, D.C. native, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton. Hi, Rhonda. How are you?
Hi, Charles. How are you? Thanks so much for having me. Hello to your Wesley Beats community.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Um, now, for my listeners, can you tell me just a little bit about yourself? We'll start there.
Yeah, well, you mentioned I am a native of Washington, D.C. I am also an insurance broker, and for many years I was a real estate broker. I am the daughter of a military, a proud military soldier who is
Okay.
with us, and I am also the proud daughter of a mother who I just recently buried in the last 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm prior military myself.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you for your service and happy
Yes.
Memorial Day.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So today we're talking about you're actually a mayoral candidate for Washington, D.C.
I am a mayoral candidate for Washington, D.C.
Okay, great, great. So tell me what have you always been into politics or how did you actually get started into politics?
Not at all, not at all. To be honest with you, being a politician now, and I realize that politics have always been a part of our everyday life. Just
Right.
the reality of what we see playing out over our airwaves and the TV turns many of us off. I've actually been a mental health advocate for the better part of the last 10 years. My beautiful and courageous mother had a stroke
Okay.
in about 2014. And ever since then, my whole life, my whole world has been turned upside down. I
Right.
am a salesperson at heart, have always been. And once I came on the ground and started assisting my mom and other families and other community members with some of the challenges they were having with getting resources from the government, it opened my eyes to why we need to be paying attention to politics.
Okay. Okay. So and it is tough. It is really tough, especially if you don't know the avenues to take to actually get the results for what you need.
Absolutely.
Yes, and it
Absolutely. I
even
think our current state of politics has everyone paying attention, and we don't normally have as much of an uproar until we start talking about cuts to Social Security and Medicaid, and it being challenging to put food and groceries on the table, as well as picking up our prescriptions and just navigating everyday life for the everyday citizen. Politics takes on a different meaning in those climates, and we certainly have one of those challenging climates present day.
yes, it sure does. And it took me a while to actually pay attention myself, but sometimes things just hit home. And once they hit
Yes,
home is when you start to pay attention. Hmm.
absolutely. Absolutely. It sure caught my attention. And to be honest with you, I have been being asked for years to get involved in our local politics, and I just really wasn't interested. I just really think that it takes a certain kind of person, a empathetic person, a sincere person. And a lot of times in politics, we tend to get the celebrity or the not so honest folks, and it kind of gives the field a bad name.
Right.
Not that it needs one when we get into the whole back and forth of it all. But again, the reality of how politics impacts our everyday life was what brought me to the forefront. And of course, being a mental health advocate and going in and out of communities and recognizing the imbalance in our governance, it just spoke volumes. And I'm one of those community folks that are always helping our youth and our families. And I'm usually saying, don't talk about it, be about it. And then one day I felt like a hypocrite because I kept saying no, I wouldn't get involved. And it was like, well, what are you really trying to convey? And so when I realized, why not me?
Right.
Uh, I had a grave responsibility to come forward and see if we could do something about the local politics here in Washington, D.C.
Hmm. It was the same with me. I help mentor young boys, third grade
Oh,
to 12th grade. And
awesome.
at first it was like I didn't have time. Now my son was in the program and I said, I don't have time, and I would get off from work and sometimes I just go and see what they were doing, just to
Yeah,
see what they were doing.
yeah.
And then as I started looking around the room, it was like they need me.
Yep.
They
Yep.
need me. And
Yep.
then,
That is so realistic in terms of all of us. We just don't have time. We're so
right,
caught up in our routines. We're trusting that the organizations and resources and atmospheres that we're sending our children into are going to get it taken care of. And then
right,
one day something happens in your living and slows you down long enough to realize that you need to be paying more attention. And who doesn't have that story?
exactly, exactly. And I've been a part of the group for like 4 years now. And
Wow.
I did have the time.
Yeah,
Now I look at it,
of
I did
course
have
we
the time.
always do. We
Yeah.
always do. But we're a microwavable society.
Right,
We're with the latest fads. We can't put these crazy telephones down. But thank God we're human, right? Because
right.
all we need is for something to touch our heartstrings or
Hmm.
to wake us up on a different level, and then we can start doing something different. I'm a God-fearing woman, and I always
Yes.
say that when He taps you on the shoulder, then you got a
Yeah.
responsibility to either be obedient and disciplined to the calling or act as if you don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. And it has really amazed me as to the impact that I've brought to these young boys.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, it kind of like it came out of nowhere. I had the time, I got involved, I'm on the board of directors, and just watching the growth. Yeah.
You jumped
Just
all the
watching
way in,
all
huh?
the way in. Yeah. And just watching the growth is amazing. So I
Yes.
totally understand what you're saying. So tell me, what is it that you see now in DC, happening in DC, that you would change, that you would be able to change?
Well, you can imagine, there's so much. That's a loaded question, but I'll see if I can kind of give you.
Yeah, I knew it was. I knew it was when I asked.
I can tell you that the elephant in the room in DC right now is the visible understanding of the 81 times wealth gap. And what that means is that if you drive our city, walk our city, or visit our city on any given day, it is visibly clear to see the side of the city that is struggling or is trying to
Yeah.
survive, and seeing the other side, seeing how affluent it is, and folks that are having a different DC experience.
Hmm.
And being a native of DC, it touched my heart because I grew up in a community of where it took a village. So even if we were not fortunate to have the traditional household setups, we always knew we had community, or we had someone that wanted to, see us advance and see us get ahead. Well, now in DC, affluent households basically on average earn 81 times more wealth. And so what I help my families on the struggling side of things to understand is that if you were to look at what you bring home monthly roughly and multiply it by 81 times, there are families that are able to achieve higher living, higher quality of living, I should say, just based on their ability to out earn, have more access to opportunities. And I believe that when you have, as we do in DC, over 100,000 that are living at or below the poverty lines, and the poverty line
Hmm.
starts at 15,000. When you see people living in those circumstances as a governing or elected official of governance, there's a grave level of responsibility that comes along with that. And when you don't manage those policies properly, you don't manage the budget properly, you're not managing who you're bringing to the table to make certain that you're taking care of your families that are living underwater, so to speak, it becomes a challenge. And obviously, when you have repeat offenders, I like to call them, when you have folks that are multiple times elected because people are not voting, which is the second challenge we have in our city, then you start to see these cycles continue. And
Yeah.
then you start to see that, corruption creeps itself in because no one's paying attention to the reality of what's really going on. And so in DC, for example, we have approximately 500,000 folks registered to vote. And what I noticed is consistently in our local elections, we had a little more than 200,000 showing up. And
Wow.
so the getting discouraged and not voting and then wanting something to be different or to change something with the system, it becomes pretty challenging. And so the homeless situation, when there's so many sleeping in the street,
Hmm.
we have such a grave problem with the administration and administering of the mental health services that are gravely needed. But then you look at the stigma for mental health and you figure there's a lack of education,
Right.
about what mental health really is. And so it just becomes a challenge of trying to get folks able to get access to proper levels of care, proper economics. We have a food desert, one half of the city, and it should not be. We only have one hospital on one half of the city, and we have a multiple of five of them on the other side. So when you start talking about something as serious as folks having access to quality health care to extend their lives, and the reality that our educational system, we uh, deposit, or I should say, we finance two educational structures, one in the charter model and the other in the public school model, and we're still not graduating our children. One out of five, roughly, are the
Right.
odds of them getting quality education, advanced opportunities. We're not preparing them for career understandings. And so
Yes.
I just saw that we were challenged as a city that if we did not responsibly do something different, we're not only failing this generation, but we're failing, the next one behind it and possibly the one behind it, because we
Right.
have silos where people are consistently living in environments and not able to get the kinds of impact that would be life changing. And so, that and so much more warranted that I came forward.
Okay, that is really awesome. And I was gonna say, but you already said it, but it's really about educating people.
Yes.
If people know, especially when it comes to voting, if people know who they're voting for and what that person stands for,
Mm-hmm.
if you have the education, you can make an educational decision. Okay.
That is so true. But something else I find fundamentally uh, a reality is that the bonds of trust have been broken.
Yes.
Someone that came just before me, looks like me, and promised all this and got in there and lost their mind and didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so then you got to rebuild those bonds of trust,
Right.
because many of us interview well, as we say. And I just feel like it's not enough to just know about the issues. I have to have innate ability to be able to transfer the
Right.
reality of what those conditions are, and the fact that there's a belief that I could be someone you can trust and believe in to help get us out of here, and to make sure that I don't abandon you once I'm elected. I'm very conscious of that. And
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I am a native, and I do understand the dynamics of our town. And one of the things I see fundamentally is the challenge for folks not voting is they just don't believe in the system.
In the
And
system.
that's
Yeah.
not, that's not hard to believe. I can see why people would feel like that, but you're never supposed to give up. And the truth of the matter is, the baton is always passed down. And I think many in my generation still running around finding themselves or just running away from the responsibility. But
Right.
I was fortunate to have a big mom, and I guess as interesting as that sound, I guess I am modern day big mama
Big
now,
mom.
right?
That's right. Yes, yes, yes. And I never understood, but being in the military, sometimes you see things and it
Mm-hmm.
shows you how our government actually works.
Uh-huh.
And
Absolutely.
when you see some things, and it's unbelievable. But I'm only 2.5 hours from DC. I'm on the eastern shore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
down on
Yeah,
the
not
east.
that far at all. Hmm.
Right. But I often times, if I go to DC, it's like I see the White House, I see
Hmm.
the Capitol, all of
Hmm.
the buildings, but you can go a couple blocks and there are people living on the street. Now,
Absolutely.
how
Don't
can
even have
you?
to go a whole 2 blocks.
That's
Mhm.
that's right. So, and the thing is, how can you send uh, billions, billions of dollars outside of this country? And if you stand at the White House and look down the street, you can see homeless people here. I
That is the
never,
question.
yeah, I never understood it. I mean, take care of your people. That's all it is.
Absolutely. Take
Take
care
care
of
of your
home
people.
first.
That's right.
And I think you raise a very valid point. And being a military brat myself, I had the opportunity to live in Germany and live
Hmm.
there for a few years and come back. And it never ceased to amaze me that, over in Germany, we only got one channel. So we kind of got a mixture of our
Right.
news, our soap operas, and everything in between.
Right.
But it never ceased to amaze me that when they showed the White House, you never saw the folks on the street, of course. But of
Uh-huh.
course, being from here, I'm like, this is ridiculous what the world sees and what the reality is.
Right.
And I think that if the world saw more of the reality of what day-to-day life is for many families, then
Hmm.
they probably would be a big help in keeping our politicians honest.
Honest.
I think that in climates such as present day, the reality is that, again, you have their attention because you're talking about attacking something as important as Social Security and Medicaid. And the truth of the matter is, homelessness has been an issue for quite some time, for far too long. It
Right.
should be something that's just temporary because you never know when your life would change or when the rug could be pulled out from under you. And you'd like to believe that you'd be able to have a temporary access to governmental resources. But the challenge again is that we have folks who just don't believe in the system, won't show up to vote, and so we end up getting the lesser of two evils. And it seems like for quite a few election cycles now, that's been the mindset of many folks. Who do we vote for? The lesser of two evils, and you don't want that. You want to see that people come to the polls motivated, excited, and
Right.
believing in the fact that this vote is going to make a difference. But we've got some work to do, both as a city and as a nation, in my opinion.
Hmm. And you said it a while ago, you have to believe in the person, not
Mhm.
just on the campaign trail, but once
That's
they
right.
get in, you have to know that they're going to actually do what they said,
That's right.
and I find that to be a big problem where people say what they're going to do, they get into office, and then
Hmm.
they said what they needed to say to get a vote,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And unfortunately, yeah,
once they get in,
I
it's
agree.
a whole different story.
Yeah, there's something about politics that the reality is that there's a compromise that has to happen at some point because there's always someone's going to win, someone's going to lose.
Right.
And the reality of having to find that compromise. But you figure that you don't want to compromise to the point that it's going to leave an entire population of people going without. You try to find the opportunities for those balancing moments. And to be honest with you, for me, uh, I do this work and the work that I do in the namesake of both my mother and my father. I lost my father to his heroin addiction. He came back from the military, and that was long before PTSD
Right.
was something that we knew was a reality. And so he dealt with that as best he could. And then with my mother having schizophrenia since I was a little girl, she had visible voices and hallucinations, and the reality of the lack of the proper resources to help children that are trapped in families of unhealthy circumstances, the reality of seeing folks living in housing with black mold and
Right.
rodents and no hot water in the winter and the real or heat in the winter, and the reality of living in communities where investors or landlords would come in and purchase property, make money, and not maintain them properly, and then not have any governmental enforcement to make sure that the standard of living or that the housing codes are being adhered to. It starts to become this system where those that have it are doing well, and those who don't are having to make do. And I happen to come from humble parents that had to make do, although my father was a military man. But his experiences brought him back home with something else to deal with. And for me, I'll always be the product of these very two loving people. But the reality is that my family, had it not been for my big mama and someone, in my home life that understood that I've got to go forward regardless of what my parents' realities were.
Right.
And I think that's that whole village understanding that we got away from. And so for me and for many others, it should be the case, but I can't speak for anyone but myself.
Right.
I do there's a legacy that I'm responsible for, and there's nothing in my legacy that allows us to operate irresponsibly or to ignore the detriment to someone else's life. Being a mental health advocate, people are entrusting you with some very private matters, and they're entrusting you with the understanding that they really are fearful of how to get through to the next day. They really are fearful of what will happen of their children. And they're really fearful that they will be left behind.
Right.
And so for me, that's motivation enough not
Mm-hmm.
to forget where I come from, why I came forward, and the work that must be done. And I'm no pushover either. So I think it has a lot to do with
Right.
it to stand your ground and know that public office is supposed to always be about the people. And so
Right.
I take comfort in knowing that I am a people person.
Mm-hmm. And that is so true. And if you, I always say, if you change what you're doing everything that's positive, you're going to change the generation that is looking at you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then that's all they know. They
Mm-hmm.
just know the positive side of things, the hard work, the diligence, what it takes to survive. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're going to teach. So if you can reach one, you can change that generation, and they in turn would
Absolutely.
change the next generation. And, I mean, I've seen it in my own life. And once
Mm-hmm.
you can change the mindset, the circumstances that you're in can be really dire, but your
Mm-hmm.
mindset is what, and your faith is what is going to get you to the
Absolutely.
next level.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
for me, the biggest challenge is getting our youth and our young people, and some old people as well, older generation, to make healthier choices.
right.
Right. And so when you know better, you like to believe that folks are going to do better. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what's so important about the intentional education in these spaces. We have 8 wards in DC, and you know, my work on the ground has brought to my attention that in one of the wards, absolutely where we have the food desert, we've got 44% beyond the national average or expected of folks that are living with chronic kidney disease.
Mm,
And the reality that we only have one hospital on that side of the town, it's not rocket science, you
right.
know. And
Right.
so when we go in these rooms or we have these elections and we're having these, smart conversations, there are folks that just want to survive.
That's
They
right.
just want to know that whatever you're doing down there, that you're not going to forget about what their day to day looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a word, dignity. And what
Right.
I don't think that many politicians remember when they go and get
Mm-hmm.
elected is that everyone is afforded the right of dignity.
Right.
And when you have people struggling to eat and you're mismanaging money, when you are uh, walking past folks that are sleeping in the street and you know that you're a publicly elected official and you're not doing all you can to reverse that. When you know that children are going to school in the winter with these old boiler systems, but you gave your buddy a contract and they didn't do what they were, all of these opportunities that we as humans have to do the right thing, and yet we choose to do the thing of greed, or we think no one's looking, or no one's going to hold you accountable. That is why we have to have folks like you and myself who stop for a minute, take a look, and realize
Mm,
that we're needed, and
right.
then we show up.
Mm-hmm.
So our average age in DC right now is 34 years old, and then average age across the nation is 38 years old.
Right.
So when we start talking about preparing our youth to be tomorrow's leaders, they're here today watching. They're here today needing us. And we're
Exactly.
still having conversations from yesterday while AI still advances. And, we look at here in DC, the English language arts comprehension of 12th graders be as low as 5%, 12%, and we're getting ready to graduate them into the world. We're still talking about finding them jobs. What happened to introducing them to careers? You
Careers.
know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we have such a diverse city here in DC, over 700,000, and many of those families are not able to travel each summer for vacation, but yet the children sit in school beside military children and immigrants who come from all over the world and what those experiences must be like. Why aren't we leveraging those experiences so that we can help our children to be bilingual and understand, how they might be able to do something other than stay in their same communities all year round without any access to higher advanced understandings. And so there's so much we can do just even on a smaller scale, but yet we have gentrification, the regular cycles are going on, and no one's stopping in to say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute, we got to do something different,
Right.
and I know that sounds a little, as we say in our world, corny, but it's time to get back to corny because we're losing too many young lives and we have responsibilities that we're failing. We're
Right.
failing the next generation, in my
Right.
opinion.
And what should happen is, regardless of what level you're on, you have to reach your hand back and
Mm-hmm.
bring somebody else with you. And a lot of times, politicians have never had to experience the hard life. They've never had to experience it. Come from, I'm gonna say, middle class, but
Mm-hmm.
you've never had to go 2 days without eating, you
Yeah.
know. So then they can't really comprehend how a person can be in a position like that. And a lot of the times it's the system that you're in that does not provide the resources for people
You know,
to not be in that position.
That is so true. And there's something called oversight, where we're
Right.
supposed to be providing proper oversight, proper accountability for our governing affairs. But again, you get into the political understandings of it all, one side against the other, or I know
Uh-huh.
your skeletons. It becomes this game, and people's everyday life is not a game. And I think that if we can help people remember what democracy is truly supposed to be about, which is showing up to vote, understanding our responsibility, and calling it out. But I tell you, here in DC, many of the families, and not just individual families, but our small business owners, we build up these pay for play systems. So if you want
Mm-hmm.
access to those resources, then you got to know somebody that knows somebody, or
Right.
be in a circle, or people see an opportunity to make a fast buck. And people are concerned that if they speak out or call it out, then there's this form of retaliation that happens.
Right.
And you understand that there's a right and a wrong, but you can't imagine having to live or accept living with circumstances lower than what you have. So you just hold fast and you
Right.
keep your mouth quiet, and then you mind your business, and
Right.
you pray that nothing happens. And that's no way for families to live, and that's certainly no way to be bringing up our next generation. So
Exactly.
yeah, I am coming forward because I realize that, we're all very busy. We're all, just trying to make it to our next payday. We're all
Mm-hmm.
hoping that these resources will help us so that we can just get these children through before we have to lose them to a public safety failure or any other
Right.
drug problem that's out there. We got 98% fentanyl on the streets, and our children are exposed to drugs a lot sooner here
Sooner.
in DC.
Yep.
Had 12 years committing carjackings. I mean, I could go on and on,
Yeah.
but where the
Yeah.
nation see the governance and the media, the propaganda of it all. If
Right.
we just prop it up and make it look right, then
Uh-huh.
no one will ask any questions. But again, being a native, I have a responsibility, I feel, to call it out, restore folks' faith in the fact that we are supposed to speak up when we see it not going properly. We are not supposed to keep voting for the same individuals when they keep failing us or letting us down.
Uh-huh.
Public office is just that, public office, government
Right.
of the people, by the people, and for the
Or
people.
exactly.
Um, and I think that we have to be a lot more sterner at reminding folks that we are supposed to show up. We're
Right.
always supposed to speak out. And yeah, it gets to be a challenge, but life is a challenge.
It is. Right by itself. It is. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Hamilton, it was so nice talking to you. I am so happy to have you on the show today. So, can you um, give people, let people know where they can contribute to your campaign or how they can help support you?
Oh, absolutely. I love that question. We always want them to know how to do that.
Right,
My
right.
website, my website is the perfect place for folks to not only just go to make a donation, but also to learn a little bit more about my stance and my policies, intentions. I happen to believe we need to audit the current in administration, the current mayor, a lot of corruption, a lot of questionable behavior. We're excited to be getting our commanders back, but we definitely don't want to do that on the back or at the sacrifice of our working class families and cutting jobs and things of that nature. So
Right.
we want to encourage folks to get involved, and they can learn more about me and my platform at www.rhonda, RHONDA, Hamilton, the number four, dc.com. That's Rhonda Hamilton, 4dc.com. They can also learn about our upcoming events. I've been doing a lot of work on the ground because I believe that if we don't go back to intentionally connect to those voters who have become disengaged, that we'll kind of see the same thing play out in our
Absolutely.
polls. Yeah, so we are on the ground. We've got two events coming up. As a matter of fact, if you'll allow me, this coming Saturday, May 24th, for any of your listeners. I mean, you're 2.5 hours away, but I'm sure that your voice carries close enough that
Yeah,
any of your listeners that are interested in meeting me and coming out to a community event. We have something at the Prince George's County Library in Clinton, Maryland, because a lot of DC workers, as well as the former DC residents, live right in the suburbs because the cost of living became so high that they moved out, but a
right.
lot of them are still connected to the city
Hmm.
generationally. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get the word out that, hey, there's someone in this upcoming 2026 mayoral race in DC that you want to pay attention to. We
Right,
actually have opportunity here. And
right.
so we have an event, a film screening, and a brilliant director and filmmaker, Mr. Trey Carswell, who was a Howard University alumni, has did a wonderful film around the shot that killed Dr. Martin Luther King. There was a
Okay.
famous photo of our leader standing on a balcony at Lorraine Motel. And so he was very curious about the South African gentleman who had took the photo and had a testimony about all that had occurred. And so the shot you'll be able to see on my website, rhondahamilton4dc.com. You can register and come on out this Saturday. That'd be wonderful. And then on June 7th, we're going to have a golf tournament, which is actually my way of also bringing in financial literacy, a community event, the opportunity to help many of our small business folks or individuals in the area that are still searching for that next career or that first career. Sales is a six-figure income if you're able to apply yourself and really have folks intentional about helping you. And I want to do something about the 81 times wealth gap. And the only way we do that is we help folks to understand that there are financial tools available that we can get them educated about so that they can be a proponent in changing
Right.
their living. So I'm excited. So on June 7th at Rock Creek Golf Course, we're going to have a financial literacy golf tournament, fellowship, dinner, I'm sorry, luncheon. We also are inviting community to come out because golf is a $100 billion industry. And the
Yes, it
way I
is.
see it, there's a lot of access to scholarships and
Right,
internships, and we can get a lot more folks off the street if we can create more opportunities to connect the moral responsibility with the need in the
right.
area. And so, yeah, I'm already busy before I even get elected, bringing these communities together.
That's right.
So
All
you
right,
can
Doc.
get all information about all that on the website. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you so much for being on the show. Western Beach Radio family, my DC group, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, is going to be your next mayor. Let's go out and support her.
Yes, thank you so much, Wesley, Wesley
You're,
Beats community, and thank you,
yes,
Charles.
you're welcome. You're welcome.